forcing transformative change for societal resilience. What is it that we want to accomplish? We are aiming to explore how to move forward rapidly and efficiently, not just to mitigate harms, but to really achieve positive impacts on people's lives, livelihoods, and nature. And when we are talking about this transformative change, what are the pathways and approaches that would lead to positive impacts? These are some aspects that we'll be exploring at the conference. Now, whichever way we look at it, it is needless to say that collaboration underpins any action on sustainability. Now, how is it that the various actors collaborate and how do they make sense of the plethora of information or standards that are available today to support sustainability dialogues? Now, this is one aspect that we unpack with our partner Consumer Goods Forum, and we have a session with them on collaborative approaches for setting industry expectations in sustainability and food safety. We would like to take this opportunity today to provide you a glimpse into this session, and we are extremely delighted to be joined by Thomas Van Haren, the Senior Manager for the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative at the Consumer Goods Forum. Thomas, welcome today. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. As we plan for this session, before we go into it, can I request you to tell the audience a bit more about Consumer Goods Forum and the work that it does? Thank you, Thomas.
Sure.
Over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Devyani, and thanks to the CRB team for inviting me today for today's session. In terms of what the Consumer Goods Forum, or CGF, is, what we do is we really bring together the CEOs of global consumer goods retailers and manufacturers, the aim of collaborating alongside other key stakeholders like CRB and other groups out there to secure consumer trust and really drive positive change. I think we're in a unique position to drive this change and help address key challenges that impact our industry across a wide range of different topics, such as environmental and social sustainability, health and nutrition, food safety, product data accuracy. We have a wide range of different topics that we really go into in order for our CGF members across the globe to really make sure that we're addressing this. And our goal is that we do so for the benefit of the people and the planet, as well as our businesses, ensuring better lives through better business. What I think makes CGF unique, in my opinion, is that the CEOs of the companies sit on our board and they take an active role in our coalitions of action. These are the coalitions that get together on the different topics, like the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative, like our forced labor work and food waste, plastic waste, etc. And the CEOs put their names on the dotted line and they commit their companies to the objectives of these coalitions. Again, whether it's going to be ending forced labor, reducing food and plastic waste, or helping us building the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative. Our work truly is global. We bring together about 400 retailers, manufacturers, service providers, and other stakeholders across 70 countries. And our member companies have combined sales of about 3.5 trillion euros and employ about 10 million people, with about 90 million further down the value chain. So I think, within CGF, we really try to make sure that we partner with with groups like CRB to have these conversations, and I think we're excited to have the session and to be a part of the conference as well.
Thank you so much, Thomas. That is indeed collective might. And I think, yes, it's important that how do we leverage on the commitments and on the strength that these brands and CEOs bring? Because I think it needs everyone's collective strength if we really want to push the needle on sustainability. So, just, taking from what you said and some of the initiatives that you talked about, now you'll be bringing some very interesting initiatives around collective action, such as the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative you talked about, the Global Food Safety Initiative. Can you talk a little bit about, how these initiatives were born, how have they grown over the years, and what are some of the impacts that you have seen?
Sure. So the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative, or SI as we've come to call it, so it's a program that we've been running at CGF since 2017. And it's really designed to help companies understand which third-party sustainability standards are credible and meet the expectations of our industry. It's modeled after running global food safety initiatives, GFSI, that many folks may have heard of, which has been collaborating across borders and trying to reduce barriers to to ensure that there's safe food for everyone. So SSCI, as I said, was created in 2017 when our members and our CEOs got together and said, the world of sustainable standards and certifications is really complex. We need a tool to help sort through this mess. We need to understand what's credible, what's going to work, and what's really meeting our expectations. As many of you know, companies often use third-party programs to monitor, assess, or certify their suppliers. They're not always going to be on the ground, on the farm, or on the fishing vessel, being able to monitor with their own staff the supply chain. So they're using third-party initiatives, multi-stakeholder initiatives, whatever that's available for them in the particular geography that they're operating in. However, at the time, when SSCI was created, the sheer number of programs out there can make it difficult to know which ones to trust and which ones actually provide accurate assessments of what's going on the ground. We've done research, and basically there are 25 new standards that come out on either environmental issues, social issues each year. So imagine you're a company and you've got a lot of things to sort through when it comes down to it. So what SSCI does is that we set criteria. We call it the SSCI criteria, and these really set forth the expectations of the industry for these standards. We develop these criteria by bringing together our members and other key stakeholders from across the world to the table, or I guess more recently to the Zoom room, so that we can make sure that there's a high standard for the programs that they're using. For instance, let's say that you're doing an audit or an assessment on a supplier somewhere, and you need to make sure that the person on the ground is checking several different indicators of forced labor. I think the last thing a company wants to have is obviously forced labor in their supply chain. So we make sure that our criteria are listing exactly what those indicators of forced labor are, and are making sure that the people who are checking those indicators are competent and adequately trained. You can imagine, I guess, if you're a buyer with hundreds and hundreds of suppliers and you're getting all these different reports in your inbox, you're getting all these PDFs you have to sort through from a number of different standards. From our perspective, it's much easier for you to look at a list of what an SSCI recognized standard is, instead of having to go through the pages and pages of guidance materials to ensure that at least to ensure that they're making the right checks of that supplier. So if you know what the SSCI recognized standard is, then you know that the report that you're looking at is more credible and will be able to give you the right information for you to make your responsible sourcing decision. I guess, beyond that, SSCI will also be evolving as the industry evolves. There are new topics that are coming up all the time. So we've been talking about living wage for a while. With the pandemic, we're taking a look at how technology can be used in audits, and how we can do things more remotely, more efficiently. We also saw, alongside the pandemic, within the at-sea operations scope, we had to add repatriation, which was a really big topic that CGF took a strong position on, and we needed to make sure that the programs we used addressed those topics. And on the flip side, as I mentioned, all of this is based on GFSI, so the Global Food Safety Initiative. They provided us the inspiration to create a benchmark for sustainability programs. GFSI has been working for over 2 decades to strengthen and harmonize food safety systems. They're really, for us, GFSI has reduced food safety risks across the globe, and they've become the go-to organization for effective food safety management. They've improved systems, and they really get companies, stakeholders across the world together to share these practices, and to make sure that everybody speaks the same language on the issue. It's our goal over the long run to make sure that SSCI mirrors that same model, and we're glad that again to be a part of the conversation with CRB to make sure that everybody knows how benchmarking works and where we expect to go with that.
No, thanks, Thomas, for touching on that. I think this is an issue that we always hear as well, that suppliers are confused and they have multiple standards that they need to adhere to, right? And it is not only time consuming, but it's extremely costly. And at the end of the day, it is very baffling for them. So I think something like that absolutely makes a lot of sense. It would be interesting to know. So when you look at this criteria, then you mentioned you're constantly evolving, and this has representation from emerging economies, supplier economies as well. I mean, when you're looking for inputs and stakeholder collaboration, and because one of the things that we also hear is the need to get a closer collaboration between the global north and south, right? That when we are setting criteria and when we are setting standards, how do we get these voices into the mix, right? Because there are local realities that they need to look as well. So is that also something? Sorry, it's a question that just came to my mind. Is
Sure.
that also something that you look at when you're looking at the criteria setting?
Yeah, exactly. When we're developing the criteria, so the first step that we do is get together our members, which are across the global north and the global south. We have large companies, small companies, big retailers, small retailers. We get them together and say, okay, what does a credible program look like to you? What are you expecting? What information do you need to see on the audit report? Um, so that's why it's really important for us to reach out to CRB stakeholders and other folks to get them involved. We want to have companies have the seat at the table by being part of the SSCI coalition, by being part of CGF. Now beyond that, everything that we do at SSCI has a public consultation element. So everything, all of our criteria go through an extensive public consultation. We have different stakeholder sessions with different groups. The criteria are available online for people to have comment periods on. We really want to make sure that we're setting the bar for these sustainability these standards, but we also want to make sure that it's going to be the same thing that works on the ground, right? We're thinking of things in our head offices and our in our conference rooms, etc. But it needs to also work on the farm, on the field, on the fishing vessel. So we want to get people involved. So definitely involving different stakeholders from emerging economies, from civil society, and anybody who really wants to take part in those conversations. We welcome them and really look forward to their feedback. Because again, what we have right now with an SSCI, we have version one. We understand that it's not going to be we're not going to be staying in one place forever. We need to evolve version 1.1, version 2, and we need feedback of what's how we're having impact on the ground as well.
Thanks. Very encouraging to hear. And I really like the fact, Thomas, and how you have highlighted also that how CRB can work with, the Consumer Goods Forum. And there are so many areas that we can collaborate on, so whether it be the voice of the stakeholders, whether it's consultations, criteria setting. So I think that's something very encouraging to hear. So just coming to the session a little bit, right? Because it gives us an idea of the initiatives that what are your expectations from the session and whom are you targeting, who should participate, who should attend this session, and for people who are attending the session, what can they expect, to get out of the session? If you can touch upon that, that would be great.
Sure. So our objective is to really share our belief that benchmarking works. Benchmarking, it's an effective tool that can bring about positive change by setting clear expectations that are independently verified. That's really sort of when we were having discussions on what a session might look like. We want to be clear that benchmarking has worked for a long time within GFSI. We've started with SSCI, and we've brought along our friends at the Global Sustainable Seafood Initiative, who also do work on benchmarking in the same way. For us, it's really important to show that it's an effective tool, and for those people who may not be aware of it, that the tool exists and it's, as I mentioned, publicly available. Much as within GFSI food safety systems, they're a must-have. Every company that's dealing with food, knows what is expected of them, and we think the same thing should be taking place when it comes to sustainability aspects of the supply chain. We want the participants to know that the tools exist, how they provide greater access to the marketplace. If you're involved, if you're getting your supply base, or your suppliers, or you yourself are being assessed or certified by an organization that's recognized by one of the benchmarks, you're going to have greater access to the global marketplace. Everybody will know that you are taking, whether it be food safety, seafood sustainability, or general sort of social sustainability and supply chain seriously. And I think touching upon our last, comment, we want people to know that the tools really benefit from greater participation and collaboration, especially among stakeholders in the emerging economies. Right? We have access, especially now with Zoom and Skype and whatever, to reach people that we get a chance to reach before. When you couldn't necessarily travel because of costs, etc. We can get to people. We can have these stakeholder consultations across different time zones. For people who we expect attending the session, anybody who really wants to know more about these tools, or has an interest in sustainability or protecting their reputation of their value chain. We really hope by the end of the session, anybody who participates will know more about how the benchmarking and recognition process works. And as I mentioned, why it's so very, very important for people to get involved and participate in the criteria development. Help us know what's coming down the pipeline. Let us know what are the topics that are on your mind. What keeps you up at night when it comes to sustainability issues or food safety, so that we can make sure that gets incorporated into our criteria.
Great. I think you touched on a very important point, which is the market access, right? Because one of the biggest challenges that suppliers face also is that are we recognized and rewarded adequately for the sustainability actions that we take? And I think with credible standards, they definitely have an opportunity. And if there's a benchmarking on which standards, so it's definitely of interest. We will also be, making sure that we have like people from academia, a lot of suppliers, brands, civil society, other standards to really come and attend the session, right? Because this is of great value to them, and that's something that we are looking at. And at CRB, again, we've also, have been working on this. We believe that without a sustainable marketplace or without a market access, there's not much that we will be able to progress on sustainable enterprises, because you create this whole big network of sustainable enterprises, and then what? So unless you're able to link them to the consumers, to highlight to the consumers, or provide them access to buyers who are looking for these kind of suppliers, then I think we are sort of fighting a losing battle. So I think that is extremely important, and definitely a very attractive point. So we are quite keen to, Thomas, even keep collaborating after the session, because there's so much, so much awareness that can be created, so many more conversations that can be had. Look at different marketplace models that we can look at, and we definitely, and all. And if we look at supply chain sustainability, to be honest, that in the whole context of sustainability, everyone knows that supply chain sustainability is the most important to address if you are looking at, the delivery on the sustainable development goals, for the brands to deliver on their sustainability commitments, and perhaps the hardest to monitor as well. It is much easier when supply chain is formal and organized, but we all know that the supply chain extends far beyond that, right? And there is a need to keep looking at newer and newer ways to look at supply chain sustainability so that it works for everyone, and collaboration is the underlying. So I think, Thomas, I'm very excited. I'm quite looking forward to it, and we're going to talk about this more at the session. So thank you so much for your time today. It has been great. And we invite everyone to join us for the conference from the 27th to the 29th of October. And this session will be on the 28th of October from 3:45 p.m. IST, India Standard Time. And we look forward to everyone joining the conversation. So thanks a lot, Thomas. Have a lovely day.
All right, thanks, Devyani, and looking forward to everybody joining the session. And thanks again for the invitation.